Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Green Talk. We're here today with a colleague of ours, Denis Clifford, works for a company called Virto Commerce, which is a B2B kind of a digital front end tool for B2B commerce. And we're going to be talking today a little bit about that space and how it's evolved from what I would call the old three-ring binder approach, where you might have B2B salespeople going door to door, talking to customers with pricing lists on three-ring binders, and how that's evolved to more of what Amazon and other kind of digital commerce players are doing in the B2C space. Those kinds of tools are now evolving into the B2B space, and it has a unique, I would say, unique impact on customers and sales reps and the culture of sales in that space. So welcome, Denis.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
thanks for coming, Dennis. That's good to see you.
My pleasure, lads. Happy to be here and happy to shoot the breeze.
Yeah.
Awesome. Scott, we need to have like explosions and stuff in the background because that preamble of like what we're going to talk about, it needs that epic kind of, explosion background. Like, here
Like
we
an
go.
like an Avengers movie or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Dennis, before we get into kind of your background and some of the real fun stuff, Scott and
Yeah.
I were in Ireland, in Dublin, on November 24th, 2013, and doing some work for Carlson Residor for the hotels, Radisson hotels, and
Mhm.
we're doing some work with one of the service centers there for the EMEA region, and we were driving around Dublin in the early morning. And Scott got a flat tire on our car, but we were parked right next to Aviva Stadium. And it was the day that the All Blacks and Ireland played at Aviva Stadium, and Ireland was up for the whole term, 80 minutes, but they went into extra time and All Blacks came back. Do you remember where you were on that day,
Uh,
or do you remember
cheers.
that match either?
Well, I do. I mean, I love my rugby. We've had a few fantastic days out against the All Blacks, that is for
You
sure.
have.
But there's one thing about playing the All Blacks is you never can be sure that you have them beaten. They will keep on coming and coming and coming.
That is
Even
true.
after the final whistle is gone, check the scoreboard, check with the ref, make sure they didn't do something you didn't see and you won the game. Yeah, they are pretty almighty. We played them again last weekend, and having had, I think, quite a few good days out against them, but they're back to their winning ways against Ireland.
Yeah.
And they defeated us in the Rugby World Cup quarter final as well. Nail biting game. Always great games with the All Blacks, in fairness.
What a fantastic rivalry. And I think, again, as we start to get into some of the discussion and some of the topics that you're, expert in, or at least, driving a lot of change in business in, I always like that back and forth because competition is good. It makes
Yep.
people better. But looking at things uniquely different and trying to figure out how to win versus the rivalry and all the other things. I just thought I'd walk down memory lane. I asked Scott earlier today if he remembered what year that was. And he said, I don't know, 2017, 2018. I said,
Yeah.
it's just your memory doesn't go back far enough and fast enough. But thanks for walking down that memory. Maybe you can give us a little bit of background.
I'd be very cautious about referring to me as an expert in anything, though, John. But there you go.
All right. Well, now we can get on to the real business now. So thanks for indulging me here.
Not at all. My pleasure.
So Denis, maybe you can give us a little bit about your background and journey into the kind of the B2B marketing space and where you're at now.
Yeah.
And some thoughts there.
Happy to do that, Scott. I would love to tell you that everything that's happened in my career has been part of some sort of master grand plan, and that I was following, an ideal path that I had planned out in my head. But that's not the case at all. I find myself sitting where I am chatting to you today purely by accident, and to be honest with you, a lot of us that is the case, I think. I really liked your intro about business to business digital sales. So my journey into that space really came about because I was a call center manager, and I was running call centers, business to business call centers. And maybe some of your viewers or listeners to this podcast will relate, but somebody decided to start a digital ordering portal. And they said, well, where are we going to put that? What function should look after it or lead it or whatever? And they said, oh, sure, we'll give it to Dennis in the call center and his team. They're pretty good at all that sort of stuff. And, almost 20 years later, here I am. I'm working for a B2B e-commerce software vendor. Scott, as you said, we build digital sales channels for companies. And it's been an interesting journey, mostly via Heineken, where I spent 15 years. Along with some colleagues, I started the digital B2B function internationally at Heineken in Amsterdam, and spent a very happy few years traveling around the world to various Heineken markets, talking to them about why digital sales are important, why if they didn't own that digital channel, somebody was sure as heck going to own it on their behalf, and they were going to lose some value out of it. And learning things about how it's so important that the customer is still at the heart of it, that you don't, in that migration from the 3-ring binder model, Scott, you were talking about, to digital sales, that you don't lose the customer somewhere in between there. Those of us involved in business to business know so much of it is about relationship, and that doesn't change just because you digitize it. So there's a trick there to how you can kind of keep that stuff alive. I suppose by final piece of context, I'm not the tech guy in the room. I think I say that in nearly every conversation with customers and partners and whatever, because people start talking about APIs and Azure hosting and this, that, and the other. I'm not the technical guy. I'm really interested in the strategy bit. I'm interested in the customer bit. I'm interested in how you can do digital experiences much better than your competitors and even win market as a result of it. So that's a little bit about me. I don't know if that helps people to figure out who I am, what I'm about.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that DNA is so important, to understand kind of the culture, and companies do know their products and services the best, right? You don't necessarily come in and say, hey, we're going to be expert on your XYZ, whatever it is that you're selling or promoting or pushing, but that human DNA, the human connection and the emotional connection tends to be much more of the winning part and the challenging part sometimes at the same time. Is that a fair statement?
I would say so, 100%, John, and at a number of levels. So if you're interacting digitally with customers, somehow making that still feel like the same type of relationship you had with your sales rep or other source, that's a real challenge and an opportunity. It's also, though, when we work at Virto Commerce with new partners like yourselves, with new customers, the projects that I love the best are the ones that don't start with okay, here's a list of features we need to build. The projects I love the best are the ones that start with, so tell us about your business. What are you winning at? What would you like to be winning at that you're not today? And how can digital potentially help you to do that? And then we'll start building features a little bit more, and other things like what's happening in the market. What are your competitors doing? Are there compliances that are new that we need to deal with? Things like that. So other stuff around the technology that in the end makes the technology better. At least that's been my experience anyway,
Yeah, I think that, it's so important that it's a tops down and a bottoms up kind of a strategy, right? Because you really need to have kind of that vision from the top, and excuse me, carrying it forward as to where do you want to be in X number of years, or how do you want to look at your business in X number of years. But it's also super important for those folks at the ground level that are making it really happen to write themselves into that story. And I think that's 100%. Such a consistent part of customer experience that, sometimes gets lost, right? Well, we come up with a great strategy and then everything will fall into place from there. But it takes constant care and feeding and communication and readjusting kind of what everyone's expectations are. And that's an art and a science at the same time. That I think, you guys have really brought to some of our client experiences and some of our client conversations. And I think that recognizing that from your seat is such an important part of the partnership that we've had.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that, John, for sure. The other projects I love, and I say this just because it's the three of us here, right? So I wouldn't be saying this, to anybody else, right? But my other favorite projects are the ones where the digital project is run out of the commercial side of the business. So sales and marketing, customer success, the people who are ostensibly closest to the customers. Other projects can work well when they're run out of the technical side of the business. So you've got your, VP of ICT or whatever it happens to be. But I think then you have to work all the harder to build that connection with the customer actually in the project. So my favorite ones are always in my kind of comfort zone of sales, marketing, and customer success colleagues, that's for sure. I loved what you said there, John, about the bottom up piece as well. Actually, I've lost count the number of times in the middle of a project where you'll go out into the market, let's say with sales reps or people who are talking to the customers, and you'll explain the project, what's happening. I've sat in delivery trucks and observed what's going on. I've thrown kegs into cold rooms with drivers to understand their kind of experience, and you tell them what the project is about. And the number of times you'll have somebody say to me, do you know what you should do that would make the customer's life much better is this? And nobody back in head office is telling you that stuff. Do you know what I mean? You'll never get that there. But if you go out and you talk to the sales rep, the delivery drivers, whatever it happens to be, whatever business you're in, there's always gold there because of that proximity to the customers. That is that bottom up bit I think you were talking about there, John.
Yeah, and as someone, my perspective, when we started Infinite Green, I was more in the B2C space, so it was all digital strategy as it relates to consumer. And it was much more of how do we present the relationship and our company to the consumer that doesn't know us very well or is purchasing a single thing at a single specific time. And when I transitioned to when we had more and more projects in the B2B space, really understood that these relationships are long lasting.
Yeah.
Right. So they're used to having this interaction. They're used to maybe setting pricing once a year, right? Versus setting dynamic pricing every minute of the day, like maybe an airline might do or hospitality might do.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of not just presenting new tools and new ways that you can sell product to this relationship that you have a close relationship with and some history with, but how do you present the tools in a way that doesn't destroy that relationship?
Yeah.
Right. And helps them progress from, pictures and handouts and cocktail napkins of orders and things like that to tools they could easily still have the conversation with, but, kind of turn their computer around or their tablet around and show them what it might look like.
Yeah.
Right? Let's put the order together ourselves. So it's kind of this co-create type of digital interface versus, I wouldn't call it cold, but in the B2C space, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
And that was a good learning. That was a hard learning for me to understand, like, why do you only do pricing once a year? It's like, because we have to print out the sheets and give them to the sales reps and they'll take that once a year to the, it's like, well, we don't have to do that anymore. Well, but you're going to have some kind of way to bridge that gap, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's been a challenge for me to kind of learn with some of our customers is, how do we do that in a way that progresses it and doesn't try to, I don't know, outpace, if you will, that relationship that's been established for so long.
Yeah, like a concrete example for me would be, and I know we have had a few examples together as well. So I alluded to working for 15 years with Heineken, and as digital was becoming the, let's say, default order channel of choice for customers, the role of the traditional sales rep had to change from order taker, somebody who would sort of precede the delivery truck on a route effectively, which is what it would have been, going back along 20 years or more, to becoming more of a business advisor actually and becoming a business expert. So somebody who can go into the outlet, analyze the products, the profitability, what niche does that particular outlet store or bar, whatever, serve in the community, and how can that be all built up? And, for some, that transition was difficult, but for others, not so much, if you know what I mean. There were many who enjoyed the freedom of being able to say at the beginning of their day or week or whatever, these are the 3 or 4 customers I absolutely have to go and see. And I've got heaps of stuff I can talk to them about to make their business better. And consequently, I'll grow my sales in that outlet as well. So it was about taking the relationship actually up a couple of steps and dropping, by way of digital, stuff that could be perceived as less value. Of course, the order is valuable, but the actual mechanics of placing the order is not where the value is, it's the size of the order. And the best way to influence that is not to walk into an outlet and say, how many kegs do you want this week, John? It's, what events have you got on? Is the rugby on in Dublin? Jeepers, you better order another 10%. Your man down the road has done this. I've got some lovely flyers. Let's get some people in. Maybe we'll do a promotion. There'll be a band. Now we're talking. That's what it's all about. And it's not so much that you have to somehow shoehorn all that experience into digital. It's you take the bits that digital's really good at, and then you make the sales rep the star of what they're really, really good at. I spoke to somebody else in the electrical distribution and wholesale sector about something similar. And we were talking about AI, which of course we're all talking about now. And if we don't have a conversation that doesn't involve AI, the conversation is not worth having, I suppose. And his take on it was this, that if we can use artificial intelligence to process plenty of orders for people who walk into an electrical distributor, let's say they're electrical contractors, they can order in advance, they can do whatever they want for all of the humdrum stuff that they know how to do. But let's get those people behind the desk, the experts, able to serve as many more of those unusual queries that AI maybe can't handle so well. So it frees them up. So again, we're not trying to shoehorn a load of stuff into digital that doesn't fit. We're trying to really enable the people who are the experts to show what they can do.
Yeah, that's a great response and kind of focus that I think I've learned a lot from, and I'm not directly involved in all the project work that you and Scott are with our client, but the one thing that I'm seeing a lot of benefit in the ancillary or in the halo around what you're doing for that experience, that B2B experience, is it really focuses back on the employees and it makes them better at what they do.
Yeah,
even if they're not part of that digital platform or the initial design of that. You see customer experience agents on the support side, on the sales side, on the IT side, right? Really kind of unlocking a lot of that. Well, here's what I love about working for XYZ company and the brand that I internalize and feel really strong and passionate about. And now I can just have a better conversation with my internal customers or my external customers, and that knitting it together, but that consistent kind of, again, we call it the DNA of a company, right? It really starts to build that muscle around that in a different way. And so, you look at the long term of the projects that you run at Virto Commerce, and you go, what's the second level of hockey stick growth that's going to happen? That might come from just everybody aligning around, wow, we have a really consistent message that and process that we're delivering on the digital front end. And now we can just do what we do best, which is, to your point earlier, connect with the customer and create those long-term relationships. And I've just learned that from listening to Scott on conference calls and hearing, your team really help navigate and orchestrate kind of the process of getting from start to the next finish, not the final finish, but, again, enabling that in a bite-sized way so everyone can continue to write themselves into that story and unlock what they do and do best. So I really appreciate that approach.
It's context is everything. I'm always saying it. I think culturally, those of us who are Irish and consider ourselves Irish, and also for many people in the United States, context is really important. You want to understand the why. You want to understand what's happening around the thing, and that kind of understanding, and we're getting quite esoteric around it. That understanding actually really enables the people that I work with, who are the technical experts, who build fantastic features in code and technology, to do even better. So I work with people, as Scott would know, who are really curious about that kind of stuff. They don't need to know it all, but they need to know much more than just, okay, build me an order form for this customer that does these three things. If you talk to a lot of the people at Virto Commerce, say, well, why? What industry is in? Do they have minimum order quantities? Is there a maximum they can order? What happens if that happens? They really want to know much more around it so that they can actually make it better. So so context is everything, for sure.
Yeah, I was just at one of our customers, and they were having their annual conference, and they were kind of congratulating themselves on some sales and where things are growing. And there was one product category that wasn't growing the way they wanted it to. And the system is so limited to the existing system, to this existing solution is so limited on how you can find this product, that they were telling people how to search for the product code. Right. And I see all the sales reps in the room writing down the product code for this specific product.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just the limitation of their existing process today. right?
Yes.
It's like, oh, I have to remember to search for this specific code. It has no logic or reason to it, right? So now they have to memorize something just to sell a specific product line that I just can't find in my existing solution. And so I think we said, hey, we're going to plan on doing this kind of search and this kind of filtering and this kind of promotion of this product. So in the future, you're not going to have to do any of that. And that was a huge win for them,
Yes.
right? Just not having to write down a product code to sell. And so it reminded me, it's like all we're trying to do in this, in building these digital front ends is break down those barriers so that I can continue to have a conversation with the customer. And the stuff behind the scenes, like the order kind of can get filled out in a way, and I could make it very easy for them to present the whole catalog of products to the customer when those things, in process, if you will.
Yeah.
And so even things like, we talk about AI, and we were brainstorming the other day about, oftentimes this customer gets a ton of emails from built like, hey, could you add this to my order? Could you add this to my order? Can you add this to my order? Because it's a seasonal type of order. And they have all of this, copying and pasting into an existing order system. I said, what if we couldn't just ingest that email into and just create an order from the email?
Yeah.
And, that was blowing people away. Right. And it's not, it's not the technology in and of itself. It's being able to free up time so I can focus on the value adds that I know I can deliver to this customer. And so it's all about making it easy and making it feel local so that when I'm face to face or in an email, I could be focusing on the relationship, not how to find a product or how to use the technology.
Yeah. That finding the product bit, search was always important, and finding a relevant product is important offline, right? So find the right product for the right person. But finding products online and search is a roaring hot topic. It always was, but it's even white hot now, because more and more people are starting their buying journey, even in B2B now, through their LLM of choice, whatever it happens to be that you're into.
Sure.
And making sure that you have data that's organized nicely in the back end so that it can be found is going to be really, really important. So I was at a conference earlier this year. There was an awful lot of talk about AI and AI agents, agentic commerce, and so on. And my very subjective opinion, and this is purely subjective and an editorial approach here, is I think some of that conversation is putting some companies off accelerating their digital channels because they don't know what's going to come yet, and they're waiting for something to fall out as the leading way to approach AI and commerce. And as a consequence, I got the sense from talking to some people that, well, I don't know what's really going to happen, so I'm not going to move yet. The problem with not moving is somebody else is going to move for you. Like, unless you're a really, really strong brand owner who's absolutely dominant in the market, in whatever sector of industry you're in, not having a really good digital presence, even without the use of AI, is going to be an issue. So that's one thing. And we're building lots of really interesting agentic solutions and POCs and all sorts of really exciting stuff. And some of it may take and some of it may not, but we're really engaging with it because we absolutely have to. And that product search piece is a really important part of that, Scott, as you bring it up. So I thought I would mention it. Like, we have a tool at the moment where if you're a building contractor, you can write on a piece of drywall, or plasterboard, we call it here. Is it drywall you call it in the States?
Sure.
What you're looking for, what dimension of pipe and blah, blah, blah. Take a picture of it, load it into the platform, it'll parse the order and make an order out of it for you. We have another kind of conversation agentic solution where you can just write an email to the agent to say, hey, I'm looking for 25 laptops with 24 megabits of RAM and blah, 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 blah. And it'll start asking you questions back. Well, do you want them from here? Do you want them from there? Would you like secondhand ones, brand new ones? It'll compile all of that, go out to market, find those potential quotes for you, and bring them back and compare them, all from your email inbox. This kind of stuff. So it's not something to run away from. You've got to go out and start experimenting with it, for sure.
But I love that, and I think it's because, Dennis, what you talked about around context. If you have a culture of context driving, or curiosity, if you will, within the organization, rather than, we're the authority and we go do it. And yes, you do. because you know your platform and you know the capabilities and the starts and stops. But it helps you on your, how do we look at this thing forward, or how do we layer in some AI but still keep the context really and the
Yeah.
curiosity driving it, right? So I think your company has driven this context culture and this curiosity culture rather than, well, we only do it this way and this is the best way you can use us. I mean, your flexibility within organizations that may not fit into the box, simply, you guys don't shy away from that. I think you gravitate to that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And I think those projects, back to your point about some of your favorite projects, they probably started out as being, man, I don't know how we're going to get this done. But
Yeah.
you
100%.
ultimately get to that point because you know that there's such an important connection that needs to be made, and we'll figure it out some way. And it's not a map, it's a compass, right? It's true
Yeah.
north on the compass, and finding it, there might be a few different ways to get there. And that's really a philosophy that Scott and I have taken with our business. People ask us all the time, hey, what's the best AI platform for this or this or this? And we say, we can't really keep up with it, but we certainly kind of understand how to get to the crux of the challenge, and then let's go find the right tool. And oftentimes that might change the way that they process, or the way that they look at that challenge a little bit differently. And maybe they have something internal that they can use today. But I think that context of curiosity and not feeling like we have to sit within a specific structure is such an important message there too. And I think you really walk the walk with that on a daily basis, just from what I've seen, what I've heard from Scott. So I really appreciate that.
I think go ahead, Dennis.
No, I was just going to say something that John really triggered me on there, actually, which is, so you're probably alluding in part of that, at least, John, to kind of composable commerce and having, digital solutions, digital sales solutions that are built up of building blocks. You take the pieces you need. If you don't need them, you don't install it, at a very kind of basic level, if you like. But the other thing is, away from the technology piece and saying it's all about kind of context and so on, one of my favorite things that I learned from working particularly with Heineken was test and learn. Sometimes in business, we have this view that says, jeepers, I have one shot to get it right. And when we're talking about customers, very often that's true. Only one opportunity to make a good impression and all that kind of good stuff. But equally, you have to be not afraid to test something. It fails, you learn, and you test again. And I think that's hugely important. So, make a move, do something. The worst decision is no decision. All of that kind of stuff. That kind of going out, trying something, and if it fails, it fails. But give people the license to fail. They should be accountable for the success, but they shouldn't be punished if they fail. If you follow what I mean.
True. Yeah, so true.
It's much more. It is less about the technology and more about the culture of doing good projects generally in business. Should be about all of that, and the technology should enable you to do it. That's kind of where I was going with that. So you triggered me there, John. So yeah,
I think that's why we connect so well. Is back in our Scott and my Best Buy days, it was test and try, fail fast, learn fast, test again, and get to the end. And that idea of having that umbrella of coverage to be able to test and try without it being like a pass fail kind of a situation, but it's a pass or fail and learn, and then really pass and move the needle. And I think, again, if you think about to your point about AI and some of the projects that get stalled because somebody's waiting for that market leader or that leader competitor to kind of say, okay, here's how we're going to do it, and then we're going to take a different direction or whatever. The waiting right now is what's really, I think, challenging businesses to stay relevant. I think you have to have again, that's that tops down and bottoms up strategy. You got to bring a vision to the table and enable that vision, but also make sure that it's complementary to the people on the ground level that are making it happen every day. And a little bit of that and all that combination forward is, again, why, to your point about the context and curiosity and driving that behavior within an organization is so important. And I think we've lost a little bit of that over the several years, right? I think we're looking for silver bullets with AI and with some of the technology. And, we've been on this for now, about 30 minutes. And I think we've talked more about human nature than we have technology. And I think, again, it's part of that driver that you have to balance. And, I think hopefully we haven't limited the Virto Commerce, sales pitch here because we love what you guys do and how you do it. But it really starts with a lot of that human behavior stuff, and you guys are good at that.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, I think we're at 30 minutes already. Time goes by fast.
Wow. How about that?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the conversation. That was interesting. I hope other people find it interesting. If you want to spend a little bit more time with Infinite Green, you can use this QR code, stop the video, use the QR code, and schedule some time with us, and we can go deeper on that. If you want to learn more about Virto Commerce, you can reach out to Dennis. I'm sure you can find him in LinkedIn and other places, or you could reach out to us, and we can get you connected as well. But
Absolutely.
appreciate the time today.
That was great.
Yeah,
fun.
thanks so much,
Chat
Dennis.
to you, lads.
You as
All right.
well.
Take care.